In my case, I was the one showing off to everybody, saying that the breadwinner in my family is my wife. I'm the bread eater. That was the joke that I used to make everyone. I eat the bread, she wins it. Patriarchy works in a way where it benefits men, but oppresses everyone.
Exactly.
That's the thing, and that's the thing that we don't realize enough. And men are conditioned so deeply that they can't even imagine a world where they can be nurturing, right? For God's sake, stop just looking at yourselves as providers. Please, for God's sake, also recognize that nurturing is just an important part of any human being. It's not just a man or woman thing. It's a human thing.
Hello and welcome to Love Matters. I'm Leeza Mangaldas, and before we dive into today's episode, I'd like to request you to please rate and review this podcast wherever you're listening, or leave a comment if you're watching on YouTube, because we love receiving feedback from you, and we're going to be reading some of the most creative comments and reviews at the end of each show. All right, now let's dive in. Today we're going to be talking about a topic that often remains unspoken, even though it impacts all of our relationships: money. How do money and gender roles show up in our personal lives? No matter how hard I have tried to shake off traditional gender roles, ideas of who gets to be the breadwinner and who must be the caregiver still factor in. And I'm going to be unpacking this topic with a very special guest, Nikhil Taneja, who I am also grateful I get to call a dear friend. Nikhil is the founder and CEO of Yuva, a media and impact organization dedicated to amplifying youth voices. He's also a writer and producer who uses storytelling to upend social norms. And he's the host of Be a Man Yaar, an award-winning podcast that celebrates positive masculinity and, again, challenges regressive gender roles. So, Nikhil, such a pleasure to have you here. And I'm excited to be focusing on also what money means in the way that masculinity is constructed within relationships, because I think we'll have personal insights that will be interesting to unpack together as a woman and a man. So I'm going to start with, who paid the bill on your first date with your now wife?
Great, we're diving right in. First question. It was me. I was the one who gave the money. I have to say that me and my partner, my wife, have been together for 18 or 19 years now. So we've been together since college. And when you're going on a date in college, and this is 2006, I don't even think it was assumed that the woman would pay. It was pretty much clear that if I'm asking a girl out on a date, I'm paying for it. Things have obviously changed since then, but not as much, I would still say.
How do you think historical context factors into this? When I speak to men about this, it can be quite polarizing. I've spoken on social media about who do you think should pay on a first date? And many men are like, why are we expected to pay? And I mean, if I'm honest, I would appreciate it if a man paid on the first date. I would always bring my card out, and I would like him to be like, no, I got this. You get it next time. And not so much because I can't afford to pay. Of course, I can afford to pay for mine. I do not need the man to pay for the coffee. But I think that it is a hat tip to the fact that there has long been systemic inequality that has disenfranchised women. Pay for my coffee now and then, it's okay. You know what I mean? Yeah. Whereas I think today, men sometimes forget the history and think women are so entitled, they just want us to pay. Or at least that's what I get from a lot of young men. What do you see, given that you're interacting with so many young people?
If there is a man showcasing his, so to speak, manliness or macho-ness, coming to the table saying that I've got this. Again, the way you spoke of it, even in the tone that you said, it's very sweet and respectful to say, hey, I've got this. At the same time, the same thing can be said in a slightly more superior way. It can be said in a hyper-masculine way, where you've got I got this, babe, which is something that a woman might actually get offended by. That why are you assuming that I don't have the money? So it again depends upon the kind of people over there, and it depends upon what we are going for. It's a very complicated thing. There is no clear answer because, historically, I think again, for anybody I would imagine is a good intentioned man, we've always grown up being given the perspective that chivalry is important, that you have to, woo the girl. And even the girl's been pretty much told, the woman or, whoever the partner of the person is, has always been told that you will get wooed you'll be swept off your feet. There's a knight in shining armor. There's someone who's going to come and charm you. And part of the charm is that, hey, don't worry about it. I've got this. At the same time, where there is patriarchy so deeply embedded in every relationship right now, coming into a table and showcasing your money or flexing your money, which is a lot of what men also do, especially arranged marriage. Arranged marriage as a contract is just that, right? Ultimately, it is the fact that I am marrying you because you have a ton of money, and you are marrying the woman because she's a certain way, she looks a certain way. It is a shopping cart. It is Amazon. It is like, okay, how much do you have and what do I bring to the table? What do you bring to the table? And I'm not shitting on all arranged marriage, and I know many are very different, but you just take a simple look at your matrimonial pages in newspapers. What are they looking for?
But don't forget, same religion, same caste.
Of course, there's that. Plus, there is the fact that the man needs to earn a certain amount of money, and the woman needs to be a certain kind of fair.
It's an economic relationship, marriage historically.
Yeah. So it's there is no right answer, and I think so much of it comes down to intent, and those are things that you can't actually define. It becomes so difficult to come on places like this and define what would make for great intent. It just is, there is chemistry that sometimes you have, and then it is assumed or understood, and every date has to be different, I would imagine, right? Like, I have actually just dated 2 people, right? So I don't have that kind of context, but the more I talk to young people, the more I talk to my friends, ultimately it comes when it clicks. There are times where a woman might say, I'm paying, the man would never get offended. A man says, I'm paying, the woman would get offended. It could be the absolute other way around. What are you looking for in a person? And I think it should come down to 2 individual people. Unfortunately, it comes down to people, and it comes to patriarchal context, and it comes to historical context, which becomes a lot of pressure sometimes of what is the right thing to do. I don't know if I have that answer.
There really is so much to unpack, Nikhil, and thanks for breaking it down, just in terms of the sheer complexity of the issue. But back to personal experiences, how do you and your wife sort of navigate finances? Are there rigid rules, or is it quite flexible? Like, I see you as someone deeply committed to equality, and yet just from a practical perspective, we have to structure these things.
So the funny thing is that when we were dating, and I studied in NIT Kurukshetra, and that's where I met her. She was my junior in college. I decided not to take the engineering jobs. I landed 2 jobs after engineering, but I came to Bombay to make it, to pursue my dreams. I joined Hindustan Times right up front, and I started earning what would be 1/3 of what I would have gotten if I would have taken up the jobs that I got in engineering. So my starting salary was 14,500 at Mumbai, at HT, Hindustan Times. And for the first 2.5 years in Bombay, in a city like Bombay, I was only on that, right? And didn't get a raise because recession happened at that time. It was 2008-9. And suddenly for 2 years, I was not earning enough. My wife graduated, went to Bangalore for a bit, and then she came to Bombay. And her starting salary was way more than mine, right? Because she started from an engineering background. At some point we decided that we are going to stay together. And I was still earning a lot less than her, and she was always earning a lot more than me. And I was very happy about that, I was very comfortable, because I was like, at least there should be one person between us who is earning decently, because I am struggling for a bit. And hopefully this struggle leads to me getting good amount of money at some point in time. But at the time when I don't have it, I felt somehow I felt very grateful that I do have a partner who is earning a stable income, whereas I am going to go up and down. And she was also completely fine with it, and she was very sweet about it. So even though my dates in college went the other way, where I was paying a lot of the lunch and dinners that we did together, but during Mumbai it actually reversed for a bit, where I was just like, listen, I don't have the money, and she's like, I got this. And it was really sweet. And so there was a little bit of payback from the college lunches. And then when I started In fact, when I went to Yashraj, I started finally earning a certain amount of money, and it immediately became a little bit more than hers. And that's what the media operates like, right? When you make it, it suddenly, you suddenly get those jumps. And again, I was suddenly on the other side, very happy about that. But as you know, I was diagnosed with clinical anxiety at that time. I ended up quitting my job and I took a sabbatical. At this point of time, Daisy and I were married. And the reason that I could take a sabbatical for 6 months, not doing a job for a while, was because, again, I had spoken to her that I am not feeling good with my mental health. Are you going to be okay if I take some time off? Will you be able to run the home? And she was obviously very supportive. And she said, that's not a problem. So even though at that point of time she was earning just a little less than me, she was more than happy to run the household for about 6 months, where I was still not sure what I'm going to do. And now it's the other way around again, where I'm at a place where I'm now earning a lot more than her, and now it's come to the fact that where earlier it was as my salary was growing, first we were like at a 50-50, then it became like, I'm earning more, so I'm happy to pay more. They became 30-50, 30-70, and now it's almost 100%, because she's just like, why do I need to pay again given what you're earning? I'm like, fair enough. So I feel, again, it comes down, if you have partners who are understanding of each other and who support each other and who are kind to each other, money does not become a hot topic area. It really depends upon who needs what and at what stage. It is about, it's about who can take the onus, who can take the burden, and at what point in that relationship. Sometimes you require both people to contribute equally, and sometimes one person needs to contribute a little bit more, because that's what the situation requires. And if you love each other and you have respect for each other, it shouldn't matter, right? It's just that, of course, we look at everything from a gendered way. So if a woman is paying, we suddenly get afraid and say that, oh, okay, does that make me less of a man? And if a man is paying, suddenly it becomes like, oh, is this patriarchy? No, sometimes it's just relationships. Sometimes it's just two people supporting each other in whatever circumstance that they possibly can.
I suppose, unfortunately, also how the world views you ends up factoring into what you feel you can and cannot be okay with as well, right? Like, were there when you were earning less than Daisy in the early days, for example, was there any resistance or scrutiny from family members or, friends? I don't know, any judgment from the outside world? Often that factors in, right?
Absolutely.
To people's
I would imagine that it does.
Things.
And in certain cases, it very much does. In my case, I was the one showing off to everybody, saying that, the breadwinner in my family is my wife. I'm the bread eater. That was the joke that I used to make everyone. I eat the bread, she wins it. Because I knew that, and again, there was also, it came from a certain kind of confidence that I'm not going to be a freeloader. I'm not going to just use the money and, and not work for it. I knew that it's a matter of time. And I really had that faith in myself that at some point I am going to be able to earn a certain decent amount of money. But this is a time that I need that support. I don't know where that confidence came from, but I was very comfortable with the fact that you are supporting me now in a way that, I wouldn't have assumed you would, but I'm grateful for it. And I do know at the time where I am able to earn a little bit more, I am going to do the same for you if at all you require it.
I love that. I think the idea of expenses commensurate to income, if both people are earning, is a wonderful thing. But sadly, what I was trying to get at earlier also was that, like, the foundations of many relationships, and particularly with family involvement, as you were talking about arranged marriage and stuff, there is such fundamental inequality baked in, where, like, let's look at things from the woman's perspective for a second. Let's say I was in love with some man who was not making as much money as me, or not doesn't have a job even. There'd be external voices telling me that's not okay,
100%,
right?
Yeah.
Where even if I wanted to provide for him or whatever, there's probably going to be a lot of familial authority figures discouraging you as a woman from making that choice. So, like, whenever I talk on social media, for example, about how, like, love is about so much more than these parameters that society lays out for you. And, I always say, like, dil bada hona chahiye bas. And they be like, nahin, wallet bada hona chahiye, and other things. But anyway, I really truly believe that money is not going to, it's not enough. if you guys are motivated by, fancy things or whatever, and you like that, okay, maybe it will afford you a certain lifestyle, but money is not going to
100%,
be the secret sauce of a successful partnership on a human level. And yet those voices I feel like women don't get to follow their heart quite as much as they might were these societal forces not intervening, and so much so actually that even in a woman's own ambitiousness for herself, she often has to factor this in. Like in our society to a great extent, like being married is your duty as a woman. Like it's the rent you must pay to society if you want to exist as a woman. Now, if your husband is less successful or less rich than you, somehow that is a blot on your report card. And so what should you do then? You must diminish your successes or downplay them or not even aspire to be too successful, because it's a bigger blot on your report card to have a husband less successful than you or to not have a husband at all than it is to be a very successful woman as like that gold star on your report card, right? Now, when you think of that, like the psychology of that, how messed up is that, isn't it?
Yeah. Let me just start by talking about my parents itself, right? What you're talking about, especially from a man's perspective, now I look back, I never got time with my father growing up because he was always working, because his job was to earn and my mother's job was to nurture. And that was the contract that every couple had during that time, that the woman is the nurturer, the man is the provider. Now, I feel like I was very angry with my father for the longest time because he was just never around. He was always trying to provide, right? He was always trying to earn. Even when we had enough, he was still earning more because that's what he felt his job was. And even when my mother did not need to nurture us anymore, when we were independent young men, she still decided that that's all she would do. She would just stay around and help us. And I feel like it was unfair to both of them, and it was unfair to us. I don't think my mother is such a incredible talent. She's very artistic. She can paint very easily. She does pottery. She does poetry. She never got a chance to flex these skills, okay, or go and make a living out of this, and she never got paid for any of the work she did, right? When my mother had to always take money from my father because what is she earning, right? But at the same time, isn't raising a human being worth a certain kind of money? So at no point should we look at it and say, oh, she was taking money from my father. No, she was not. My father got to work because my mother was taking care of us. And in the same thing, that any of the money, any of the, any income that she was not making while she was raising us is an income that she deserves. So if that income comes out of the money that my father is earning for both of them, that's absolutely fine. On the other hand, again, I must say this. I looked back and said, why did my father not have time for us? Why was he always working? And it made me bitter. It made me angry for the longest time. Now that I look back, I'm just like, do I not feel that my father would have also liked time with me as much as I've liked with him? Maybe he doesn't know how to articulate that, and he does not. Maybe he doesn't have the emotional quotient to be able to say it or express it out loud, like many men don't. And maybe he doesn't. At the same time, I look at him and I feel like, wouldn't he have liked to, hold me a little longer? Wouldn't he have liked to stay home for a week and just spend that time with me? Because he, I see him when we meet sometimes, and he has these anecdotes of me growing up, and it's the same 4 anecdotes. It's never a 5th one. My mother has 10,000, right? My father has the same 4. Why is that? Because he never got time to have the 5th anecdote because he was always working. And I feel like that's also a burden we put on men. That you are saying, when we say that today that women can both be providers and nurturers, we never say that men can also be providers and nurturers. We still expect men to provide. There is not enough of an awareness, not enough of a conversation about men being worth nurturers. Like you have said, imagine Leeza, if if a partner, heterosexual couple gets married and they have a kid, and the man says, you know what, you go to work and I'm going to stay at home. That is not something that a society can look at and be like, oh, that's cool. that's not supposed to be cool. It's almost seen as, why is the man not working? And this is, I'm still talking about in the context of fatherhood. On the other hand, if there was no child in play, and if it was just a regular couple, and the husband say, or the man says, I'm going to chill at home for a while, why don't you go out and work and earn for it? It is going to be frowned upon, because that is unfortunately the thing. But today, of course, it's the choice of a woman she gets to choose whether again, I don't want to make it sound like women have that level of agency. Of course they don't. But among those who have that agency, they get to choose whether they want to provide or nurture. It's not the same for the man.
I mean, I'm not I think we all are ensnared by rigid and binary gender expectations.
Exactly, yeah.
I think women have been women and queer people are harmed by traditional gender expectations disproportionately, and so they tend to be leading the activism around dismantling them. Unfortunately, like, you're one of the few men I know who's doing the work to question masculinity. Sadly, so many men aren't even willing to consider themselves capable of being nurturing, or consider being nurturing as something worth investing time and mind space and like doing that work. Whereas I think so many women are doing that work of like figuring out how they can be financially independent, like all the things they were denied possibility to, right? Like if men's emotional lives have been historically and systemically stunted, just as women's financial and professional and sexual agency has been historically and systemically stunted, I feel like unfortunately, men think this serves them, and they don't do it. They think they have to share their power now or something, because women also want to be working and dating and doing whatever they want to, not realizing that patriarchy came at a cost also to men. I know that you know this deeply and are doing all this work to try and spread the word. But too many men are also, I think, often deluded by the history or whatever to believe that this serves them.
Absolutely.
That like it is not manly to change a nappy. I know parents, my generation, men who have never changed their kid's diaper.
Absolutely. I know so many.
Who and take pride in it. Like I would never do that.
Like I still go into people's homes sometimes, and even now, progressive couples, people that I am friends with, and whenever it is about, whenever time comes to bring in the snacks, it's always the woman going to the kitchen. And I'm still surprised. I still cannot believe that we, as, progressive people in a city like Mumbai, the men are still sitting around when the woman goes to serve. I don't get it.
Exactly.
I just don't understand.
And so like when you say this thing about women have the choice or agency to both be, breadwinners and nurturers or something, I think, do they? Because to a great extent, what happens now is, okay, so if you have the choice to work, you're supposed to go do your work, be the boss lady or whatever, lady boss, girl boss, like discarding those terms, but it was glamorized, right? The career woman, but then come home and do the unpaid labor as well. So you're not actually, you're like getting this raw deal.
No, I absolutely agree.
You can have it all if you do it all, right?
Correct.
And then today still I have friends, again, same level of privilege, and I acknowledge how much privilege I have, where they're like, my in-laws allow me to work. I'm so great, like applause for these crumbs. Allow me to work. Like, what is that phrase?
Let me rephrase this and try to let me rephrase this and try to explain where I'm coming from.
I get where you're coming from. I'm just
you're
so
absolutely
no one thinks
right.
that we're MRAs.
Yeah, no, exactly. Absolutely. And no one will ever. Unfortunately, some have assumed, and I get so worried when that happens, because I'm like, no, my friend, I am very much a feminist. Let me explain what I'm talking about, right? Because we are talking about patriarchy right now, right? Patriarchy works in a way where it benefits men but oppresses everyone.
Exactly.
That's the thing. And that's the thing that we don't realize enough. And men are conditioned so deeply that they can't even imagine a world where they can be nurturing, right? I am talking about this right now because I have been the other side, and then I was diagnosed with clinical anxiety, and then I took a lot of therapy, and now I've reached a place where I realized that me not taking care of my mental, physical, emotional health for the longest time was the reason that I got diagnosed with mental health issues. And had I been given an opportunity growing up to be a little bit nurturing to myself, forget to anybody else, if I had the understanding or the privilege of that awareness that as a man I could also give myself love, and my job and my life wasn't just meant to be about earning money. It wasn't just seen as a return on investment for my parents, putting in money on me, punting on me to make sure that at some point that I earn a certain kind of money and then bring it back to my family, etc., etc. But I didn't have that understanding, right? And I'm just saying that, what is happening right now, and that's what I see, and a lot of it has gone into a dangerous territory, which really worries me. The territory being that the conversation that we are having about patriarchy and the conversation we typically have about gender right now is that, and and I'm putting the onus very much also on men. So this is not at all a woman thing, right? It is that, women can be anything that they want to be, but can men be anything they want to be? That's a question. And when I say anything they want to be, I don't mean in terms of ambition or in terms of success. Absolutely, that's who they are. They are men run like 90% of the world, right? They are in all positions of power. I'm typically and specifically talking about men having the agency to not choose to do that, to earn a little lesser than they want to, so that they can also have some time off for themselves, or to be a father, or to be a son, or to be a husband, or to be a brother, which is not a conversation we are having as a society. And that is damaging. Anecdotally, I don't know what is happening right now, but I don't know if you've also heard of this. Anecdotally, Leeza, I have been hearing so many men who are just having heart attacks over the last 3-4 years. I mean, some of it might be linked to COVID, but I'm now hearing about 40, 45, 50-year-old men. So many anecdotal things of just them, getting heart attacks and passing out. They're physically fit, emotion. But I feel like because emotions are so caught up and we are so tense inside of us that at some point of time every man bursts. Whether that, in our parents' generation, that burst would happen as domestic violence, it would happen as anger, it would happen as hitting your kids, it would happen as alcohol, it would happen as sometimes even just harassment to others, and it could mean sexual harassment, because they didn't have any way inside to even express any iota of what they were going through. And I'm not justifying or men's actions. I'm literally telling you that this is the reason why for the longest time they had so much inside of them and no way of expressing what they do, that it typically veered into evil, negative, angry territory. And today, while they might not do any of these things, they just keep everything inside. They don't take therapy. They don't they don't have mental health conversations, and ultimately end up just suddenly dropping dead. And that's the danger that we have of patriarchy, and not having conversations where we also talk about men recognizing for themselves, not just women doing that job, or not just men telling women or women telling women, but everybody telling men, for God's sake, stop just looking at yourselves as providers. Please, for God's sake, also recognize that nurturing is just an important part of any human being. It's not just a man or woman thing. It's a human thing. And until we recognize that, we are putting a danger to ourselves and to society, because men will continue being angry. And unfortunately, in today's time, because of people like Andrew Tate and people who are MRA activists, they tell these men the reason you are not getting to do anything else apart from earn money is because of women. Because women are the one who are taking this away from you. They are not giving you the opportunity to be somebody else. But that's not true at all. You are not doing it. The world, who do women want gender equality from? It's from men. It's not from each other. Men have taken it away. But if we have true equality, men also get empowered to be kinder, to be more empathetic, to be more nurturing, to have more self-care, to give themselves more time.
I think that men themselves, unfortunately, are reluctant to listen or partake.
Absolutely.
How much can
it's so deeply conditioned.
How much can you tell someone if they don't, if they're not ready to hear that?
Yeah, it was very much me. I was, my brother, when I was growing up, my brother still is very sensitive, right? He had a lot of mental health issues at a very young age. he was just a sensitive kid. So he had a better understanding of empathy than I ever did. I was not a good brother growing up. My father was always outside, so I assumed the role of a father when it came to my brother. And I was toxic to him. So all the talk of kindness and empathy that I do right now, I was the opposite when I was growing up. I would tell my brother when he would get bullied by older kids that I would hit the kids, because as a older brother, that's what I thought my job was, to protect my brother. And then I would hit my brother and I'd tell him, why can't you stand up for yourself? Why can't you be man enough? That was the kind of person I was. And my brother would tell me that that's not my job, they shouldn't be bullying me. I shouldn't have to stand up for it, right? And I used to always look at him and be like, oh my God, he's just, what today we call beta man or sigma man or whatever. I would look at him and judge him and be like, until you grow up, until you have balls, until you are macho enough, you'll not be able to survive. It's only after I broke one day and I was diagnosed with clinical anxiety, did my journey of having that empathy start. It's so deeply conditioned. Gender, patriarchy is so deeply conditioned inside of us. This lust for power. I don't understand power. Why are we always what do we get after being powerful? मुझे तो समझ ही नहीं आता ये क्यों retain करना है power तुमको, क्या कर लोगे तुम power retain करके, क्या मिल जाएगा तुम्हें? You're missing out. I'm gonna go on we're missing out on so much love and joy in this world as men, in this stupid race to kind of be the most superior being on the planet. What do you get out of it? How much money is enough money? How much success is enough success? How many houses is enough houses? I know friends of mine, who have bought their 6th house, but they don't have, but they've also never been able to stick with one partner. They are like, late 30s, early 40s, they're not getting married because they don't, and it's not that they don't want to, they want to. They just haven't found anybody and I know why, because they're spending all their time in just earning that money and buying 40 houses. क्या कर लो उस घर के अंदर, कोई रहने के लिए नहीं उसके, I don't earn at that same level as them, but I've had a, very successful touchwood marriage since, many years, and I've been with my partner and I've had good and bad days in my marriage, but I have somebody to come home to. And that is a true joy. At the end of a hard day at work, no matter what you're earning, coming back home to a person who cares about you, who you care about, those are things we don't talk about as men. All the men podcasts are just about hustle and about success and about, here's how much you need to earn, here's what you can do to earn the maximum amount of money. Where is that conversation about that? Yes, earn that money. What do you do with it? You are only using it to buy products. You're not using it to enhance the comfort and convenience of not just your life, but the lives of the people you love and who love you. Where are we having these conversations? Sorry, I get very deeply passionate about
I love it. I love that you are deeply passionate. And actually, I think what would be helpful also is we've identified some of the problems, but how can we also perhaps try to point people towards the tools or the solutions? Like you said, you've made that journey yourself. I know you said it also took a significant mental health event to jolt you into doing the inner work, I suppose. But let's say we want to prevent people from having to get to that point before and most people don't even get to, sometimes a massive event can inspire change and sometimes it doesn't.
Absolutely.
And you just go back to what. So how can we perhaps point people who might be interested in re-examining their understanding of masculinity with practical tools that maybe helped you so that they can step away from some of these pitfalls and hope for a more fulfilling and expansive attitude in their relationship?
See, I honestly think that men need to take that onus, right? We have always, as men, again, put the emotional burden on women to take care of men. This whole idea of fixing men, even when you look at fiction, romantic fiction, literary fiction, so much of it is really about the women finding a man to fix. I will fix him, I will help him, I will be the one who caretakes for him. But we as men need to take care of each other. And when I say that, I've always felt this very strongly. Men can go to war for each other, but they can't cry in front of each other. Just think about it, I can't imagine a scenario in which I need to break down and I go to a male friend to do that. I will either go to my mother or I will go to my partner. Or if I did not have either of them, then maybe I'll try to find a female friend, because that understanding is that they have a lot more empathy and a lot more softness and gentleness to be able to not judge me. On the other hand, I feel like men are also capable of that. We don't give each other chances. We judge each other in advance so much that we always feel like, अरे मैं इसके सामने करूँगी तो मैं judge करेगा, then he will make fun of me, which also is true. We have seen that, crying or emotional duress is seen as a sign of weakness among men. But we need to change that. We need to change our attitude. We need to get to a place where we can create more spaces among each other as men, help each other, in times of duress. When somebody is not going through a phase, instead of making fun of each other, just being like, hey, are you okay? Can I do something for you? Do you want a hug? How many, we spoke about this on my show. Nakul and I spoke about this. It was, how when we hug our mothers, it's an all-encompassing hug. It's a hug that kind of, takes in the whole of the body of your mother, right? It's like, you're my mother, I care about you, I love you. But when we're hugging our fathers, it's almost like tap, 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 and it's done. We don't know how to have physical intimacy with each other. Men holding hands is still seen as deeply weird. Men kissing each other, and literally on the cheeks, is seen as deeply weird. Unless you are an extremely progressive, person. It's seen as, oh wow, there's something, why are you giving a kiss to your friend? He's a man. We need to break those gender norms. We need to create these safe spaces among men. And that's what I'm even trying to do with my show, right? I'm trying to give that perception that it's two men can sit with each other and be vulnerable and be emotional, and that's okay. And that's completely fine. If we support each other, perhaps we will allow spaces for each other, which then we can take to other places. If men have empathy for themselves, then they will also be able to have empathy for everybody else around them. So I want men to take that onus. I want men to recognize that it is on us to help ourselves and to help other men. Let's not put it on women. For God's sake, let's not put it on women. I know that I've been saying really long answers, but I'm going to give you one.
Please.
I met this one kid, recently who came to me, and this kid was, he says that, I had a girlfriend, and, I have a lot inside of me, and I had a lot of emotions, and at one point I just started telling her every day what I was going through, and for a few days she listened to me, and then she just blocked me. I just lost her, and then she said that I can't just constantly listen to you. I don't know what to do right now, and I felt like I only had that one person, and she turned out to be a and I was okay. So then I sat him and I listened to him, and I said, first of all, the characterization that you are doing as a very uncool and very unfair, and don't talk about women in this way, number one. Number two, how many times have you expressed what you have gone through to the men in your life? And then he took a pause and he says, I haven't. He said, why not? He's like, they won't understand. I was like, and you've chosen one woman, you had one girlfriend, and the thing that you did was every single day you would go and dump your emotions only on her. Do you think it's fair on her? If I become your very dear friend, and every day I just come and talk about how much I'm going through only to you, and only to you, and I'm not spreading it out to 5 different people, would it be fair to you? And he said, no, not really. I said, exactly, my friend. She's not a bad person. You have chosen to put your entire emotional burden on one human being, and that is not fair to them. Instead of looking at that perspective, you are saying she's a and she didn't listen to me and she broke my heart. No, she did not. You decided to use her almost as a human guinea pig for just dump your emotions. And I'm not saying don't tell your emotions to the women in your life. Please do. But also tell it to the men in your life. Also tell it to other people, your brother, tell it to your father, tell it not just to the women. Because that's how you're going to be fair. And that's how you're also giving the opportunity to the other men also to step up for you. We don't give them that opportunity. We are always constantly खुद से ही जज करते कि वो तो समझेगा नहीं. क्यों नहीं समझेगा? तुम बताओगे तो समझेगा तो सही. ढंग से दिल से बोलोगे पक्का समझेगा. That's what we need to do.
I couldn't agree more. I also think that perhaps it would be beneficial to see relationships as an end in themselves rather than a means to an end. Like I noticed that a lot of men are socialized into seeing everything as in terms of like, what am I getting out of
Yeah.
this transaction? What am I getting out of this? So, and anyway, when kind of the stigma around, talking to women, unless your family has approved of it, et cetera, you can even get in trouble, right? Just like a boy and a girl having anything to do with each other is perceived of in a certain light, as a result of which most men don't know how to relate to women other than as a romantic partner.
Yeah.
Like a lot of men don't have female friends, or don't even think they're worth their time. Like if they're not either working with you or sleeping with you, like paisa, or money or sex has to be coming out of every relationship you have in your life. Otherwise, there is no. Why would you waste your time? This idea of like connection or just a shared acknowledgement of humanity or some sort of, spirit or soul-related activity going on instead of a tangible transactional activity is one that men are taught to reject as if it's not worth their time.
And this is also, I would say, you're so right. And I also feel like this is also the fault of other men, right?
Exactly.
I remember in Kurukshetra, it's such a deeply patriarchal place that any boy who was talking to any girl for any amount of time, they would immediately next day be rumors that, they are something going on between them. And it would immediately, and it was never innocent rumors. It wasn't just the fact that, I'm going to say this on camera because I just want to bring to light how, when I look back, how deeply uncomfortable it was. But the term given to us for any boy who has a healthy friendship with a girl also was CC. Okay, CC in English meant, I don't know if I'm allowed to tell. I mean, I'll say in English it seemed innocent enough. Chick chaser. In Hindi, it meant. This is the term that was given to any man who would even talk to women. CC. I didn't know what CC meant till the longest time because I was like, I'm CC, because I was like, chick chaser, theek hai, tumhe jo sochna socho. I'm just having healthy friendships with girls. That's your thing. And then somebody told me it's not just chick chaser, that's the English cool term that you need. This is what they mean. And it was always seen as this is what you do. If you are talking to a girl.
Isn't it sad that that's the worst insult they could come up with? Sounds like a compliment to me.
I mean,
I'm joking, but you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like,
I know,
it's so sad that also every insult men use against another man has some sort of like deep misogyny and a woman's body part or mother, sister, some kind of,
And the judgment that, and the aspersion that, by being someone who is being, let's even assume that what they mean here is that you are bending your back for a woman.
Even the word simp.
Yeah, simp, correct.
Right? That's like a vulgar word for simp.
Yeah, absolutely. The idea being that if you're being kind to a woman, or even if you're having any kind of a relationship with a woman, whether it is friendship, whether it is a relationship, it always means you are giving some part of yourself away. You are being less of a man by being this person.
By seeing women as human beings.
By seeing women as
you
human
see
beings.
Men do that to each, like literally make fun of each other for seeing a woman as a human being instead of a whole, which is crazy, but it still happens. And so I really appreciate that you acknowledge that so often men are their own obstacle in this sort of trajectory to a more intellectually and emotionally fulfilling life.
Yeah, and it would also make you reconsider your friendships. You would then be like, when you are constantly being made fun of for being CC, you start thinking that, should I really be seen with girls in public as much? Because they were college magazines we had. Okay, so it was like printed on the walls. My name came in a magazine as #1 CC because I had like 4 female friends. And that's what I'm coming from, It becomes so difficult for men to have these kind of regular friendships with women purely because of how other men judge. I'm going to tell you one last incident, and I know I'm just going on and on, but like, I spoke to someone very recently who is a very well-known, I don't want to get into who she is, but she's a very good position in her life. Her husband was, and she's got a very good job for which she had to move a country. And her husband decided to support her career because she's doing such a fantastic job in the work that she's doing. It was a huge opportunity for her. And I would imagine if anybody else who would be her husband would also say, yeah, this is such an incredible job, I would also do the same. She told me very recently that I met her. She told me that when her husband decided to quit his job and quit the country that they were living in and join her in the second country, she's like, on every Instagram post and every Facebook post that they made for the next 1 year after that, his friends, who were his childhood friends since then, who were with him in the last job, would constantly comment on that picture, saying things like, oh, do you get time from washing your wife's bras? Did you get time to put this up while doing laundry for your wife, for cooking for your wife? Almost seeming it like as a shameful thing to do, that how dare you as a man quit your job to support your wife's career? How could you even do that? So that's where I was talking about this idea of being empathetic or nurturing. Men have, it's so deeply gendered and so deeply patriarchal that all of us have. We can't even see any other man being nurturing. That is seen as an insult to all of masculinity. How dare you take a decision to leave your job to support your wife? That makes you less of a man. This is the world we live in. How do we try to have more sensitive conversations around gender? How do we bring more men into this conversation if this is how men are with each other? Forget how they are with women, which is also terribly, deeply misogynistic. Men are not even kind to each other.
Exactly. I think that the fact that you are holding other men accountable, having these conversations, like really doing what you're doing with other men is something I wish more men would do. Like, there's such a lack of role models, and people need role models, right? Like, who is the house husband that we can think of right now? Or who is the deeply empathetic dad who's decided to also take time off work, or, figure it out in such a way that they can participate and change those diapers and have an emotional relationship with their child? I can't think of anybody, neither famous nor privately, who, other than you maybe, who's like talking the talk and living this, And so, are there any, am I missing any role models? Like, can we share any role models with young men hoping for...
I love Nakul Mehta. I think he's such a wonderful, wonderful feminist, vulnerable, emotional man. He's a very dear friend. I love him to death. I think he's, again, someone who even on my show spoke about it. When he became a father, he took time off to just be a father. And while other people just could not understand that, he said, I got a lot of pushback from folks in the industry saying, we have roles for you, why are you not doing them? We can't wait endlessly for you to do your roles. And he would just tell them that, do you not understand that the role I'm doing right now, which is that of a father, is the most important role that I'm doing in my life? Why is that so difficult to understand? Another man who I really look up to, Varun Kukreja, who's again, just such a present father to his children. Such a beautiful, beautiful person in the way that he, and I know that there are a lot more men right now who are going on that path, who are willing to, overcome the discomfort that sometimes comes with the fact that this is a call that I'm making of for a certain amount of time not earning a certain kind of money, for a certain amount of time being okay with whatever the society judges us to be, to do this job. Not everyone can be as emotionally vulnerable as as them, or as for that matter, even I'm very open with my vulnerability. So I really deeply admire everybody, and I feel like I know there are a lot more men, but it's also difficult to talk about these things. Because the more you make these things public, the more you open yourself up for judgment. So I know women who tell me that their husbands are sometimes, like I just had a conversation with someone, these are conversations I have so much and so often. I just had a conversation with someone who said that, my husband is the primary contact in this children's school. And they're like, the school just didn't understand that for the longest time, that he works from home and she goes to office. And because of that, he was the primary number on their children's phone for school. But the school, anytime there was an issue with the children, would still call the mom. Because again, the idea is that the mom should be taking the burden of the children and it cannot be shared responsibility. Can you imagine again, she's like, I had to tell them 20 times, please call the dad. He is also the parent. And it's the same thing, when you have all these groups for children, men are not there. It's typically women who are, on those WhatsApp group for what is happening with the children. I know Varun as one of the rare dads who's on such a group. I know Nakul as one of the rare people who tells me that they are on groups like this, and they are some of the fewest men there. I myself right now find myself in these really odd, in very odd situations where I'm on the board of a new, of a educational non-profit called Girl Rising. There are 13 women on that, and there's only me as one man. I was in New York recently for United Nations General Assembly Week, and we had a lot of gender conversations. There was one dinner that I went to, which was on gender. 30 women and me as the only man. Same. I'm noticing this as a pattern. I'm not saying that I'm the role model, or I'm very grateful that I get to be included in this conversation. But Leeza, can you imagine the fact that we are not even as a society trying to find other men to include in these conversations? My propaganda with my show is to create these role models, even if they're not. I know that Bhuvan is a really nice guy, as an example. He would not be the person that most people would think to call on a show like mine to have a conversation on gender. But I do believe he's a genuine person, and unless I pull him in and say your voice also matters, until I pull Zakir and say your voice matters, Zakir, I know you have very healthy relationships with your female friends. I want you to talk about that on the show, because that's how other boys who look up to you will get inspired. To get a Javed Saab or Naseer sir to have super incredibly feminist conversations, that's the propaganda. I know that there are men like that. We just don't look up to them as role models for gender because they don't talk about these subjects. And I also feel it's because nobody asks them enough. And we also need to now ask the men. We need to hold the men in our lives to a higher bar and say, you're a decent person, talk about gender. Let's not shy away. Talk about why you're a feminist. Talk about why you care about the women in your life, why you worship the women in your life. Vicky Kaushal on the, talking about Katrina in the way he did on my show, where he literally said that I can't believe I get to be her husband. I can't believe she chose me. I know every day what a privilege it is to be called Katrina's husband. What a beautiful, beautiful thing to say. And that's the kind of masculinity which I find so reassuring, so gentle, so kind, so beautiful. And that's what we need more in the world of. But we need to include those men, and I think that's a job for everybody. I don't think that's just a man's job. I would also say I've been advocating for it in all the gender cohorts that I'm in. Bring more men in. We keep talking about wanting gender equality, but if it's only a conversation that women are having with each other, we will not get to equality. Men need to be involved in the conversation around gender unequivocally. And we need to bring them in, even if that means forcing them in sometimes.
Yeah, well, I hope more men come in voluntarily after listening to this sort of conversation. Because no, truly though, they should come in. Often I do think that even when invited, men think of women's rights, queer rights, or something as some other people's issue.
I know.
And so you oppress me. I'm trying to do the work to overcome that oppression. I'm trying to make you aware of how it's oppressing you too. But you don't, so now I have to pull you into the room, come in, okay? This is an open invitation to men listening. Come in, have these conversations wherever they're being had. Come in, the door is open. Instead of spewing Andrew Tate in my comments.
Yeah.
It's how come it's so easy for the men to say the, anti-feminist stuff. No one needs to invite them there. But I wish that men would just partake. So I think what you're doing is amazing.
Yeah.
And I feel like we shouldn't have to bear why must men need an invitation? Just come. If you want to do something about gender equality, come. It's like the world is your oyster.
Can I ask you, Leeza, because I know that you also do a lot of work in this space. I'm just very curious to know, have you seen any best practices of how men get involved? Any examples that you can give us? Something that you've seen that has that you look at as a great case study. That this is what I was able to see, and I found it very positive and lovely.
I think that men are afraid of what other men will think of them. That's the biggest thing that prevents them from publicly partaking. Why can't I think of a male version of me on Instagram? Right? I say I have small boobs, and I was conscious of that growing up or whatever. Now I'm cool with it. Can you imagine a man being like, I have a small penis and I'm okay with that? At least in India, I don't know a single creator. I don't know if there's someone in the other parts of the world doing that. But I think in general, they're afraid of what other men will say. I get women in my comments being like, yes, queen, right? Even I have small boobs, or my big boobs made me conscious, or whatever. So much resonance, solidarity, and support from women in the comments. Even men in the comments will be like, maybe sometimes say something encouraging. Normally they'll objectify or say something silly, like, yes, you look like a flat screen TV. I don't know, whatever. I don't let people's comments bother me beyond a point. But I think that men are their own worst enemy in a way, or their own worst obstacle. Where in my DMs, the number of men who say, I have so many insecurities about my ability to please a woman, or whether I'm attractive, or how I'm going to perform in the bedroom. Like the insecurities men are willing to share with a woman privately in her DMs versus the projection that they feel they must upkeep in public forums, such as comments or in a room full of people or whatever. There's such a dissonance. So I know privately men want to be able to be vulnerable, but they refuse to do that work visibly. And so then how do I help you? I mean, is it my work to be your therapist? No, right? I love that you're inviting men in, saying men have to hold each other accountable. And I hope that you can do this publicly, because other men need to see you. If you're all too scared to do the work publicly, proudly, and put your name to your insecurity instead of pretending you have none and sliding into my DMs, like, do you know what I mean? The change could be so much quicker and so much more sort of collective if men were willing, instead of having to be pulled in, if men were not coming in each other's way as much, because I think women are very supportive of men for the most part when they're open about their vulnerabilities. I don't think women would shame that man in his comments if he said, I have a small penis, or I don't make enough money, or whatever. I think women would be like, okay, it's okay, Whereas I think other men would make fun of. I mean, of course, it's hard to generalize, but do you know what I mean? I think so often women are afraid of men and men are afraid of men because men cause harm, which is so unfortunate. And I'm making gross generalization there, but that's the crux of the patriarchy. No one.
Remember, we had that comment
benefits,
exchange.
Right? No one benefits.
Remember, there was a comment exchange when on the show you spoke of how women are, you spoke about the harm. You said the biggest thing that women are scared of, men are scared of, is that you will have a bad date, and the biggest thing that women are scared of is they'll get killed. And there was a lot of comments exchange over there. And I also wrote, because I was so angry. There was a couple of people who started writing shit on that comment, and there's a reel that you had put that went viral. And the biggest thing was that, oh no, men are also getting afraid of getting killed. How could you generalize and say that only men cause harm? Men also are victims. And then I had to really jump in and say, but who kills you? That's also other men.
Exactly.
If you feel also unsafe on roads, who are you afraid of? That's also other men. You're not afraid of women on the roads. You're also afraid of other men. So why is it so hard for us to acknowledge that? Yes, men are, men are victims. Men are survivors of assault, everything.
And I love men. We both come from a place of deep love for men. I love men. Nikhil loves men. Like, we really want the best for men. And I'm sorry, we obviously feel very passionate about this subject. I was supposed to talk to you about money and relationships. This really so many things came up. But clearly we have an issue here, right? And so I think
I also want to say, by the way, that you, like you spoke about the DM thing, even for my show, most of the kindest comments that I get from men are in DMs, not on the public comments. With public comments, it's mostly women. It's just it's so simple a divide to see that men are typically saying nice things also only in the DMs, whereas women are all commenting on it publicly. I'm not again generalizing. There are a lot of men who also write public comments, but I just see the divide. It's just so strange to me that why is it that men are not even as open to be able to say, I love this show. I loved everything about this show. Just say it out loud. Okay.
Yeah. Nikhil, it's been such an interesting conversation. They literally had to tell us to stop talking. Thank you so much for joining me today. And I really, really hope that we can all invite more men into this idea of a truly equal gender landscape. So thank you, thank you, thank you. I hope that everyone who tuned in enjoyed this conversation as much as we did. And I also want to get Nikhil to share where you can find more of his work.
I want to also say that I am typically the person who's the listener in my show, and just to have someone like you to listen, and the space that you create, Leeza, is the reason that I'm able to feel so safe to talk about these things so passionately. So thank you for having me and for creating this lovely, lovely space. My show is called Be a Man Yaar. It's on youtube.com/VIayuba. It's a show on positive masculinity. We call a lot of iconic men and have conversations around gender, feminism, mental health therapy with them. You might enjoy it. Please go watch.
Definitely go watch. And please also continue to watch Love Matters. We would Love Matters is produced by the Indian Express and DW, Germany's international broadcaster. And as promised at the beginning of the show, we are going to be reading some of your comments and reviews at the end of each episode. So today I want to read out what Soumya Ashish Gupta said at the end of Anish Kawande's episode on what it is like to love men. Soumya says, I felt very safe listening to the entire conversation, open-minded and judgment-free. Thank you, DW and Indian Express, for such awesome work. Thank you, Soumya, for sharing your feedback with us. We're so glad you enjoyed the episode, and we would love for more of you to share your thoughts as well. Please do rate and review us wherever you're listening. Like, share, subscribe. Send this episode to the men in your lives. Till next time, this is me, Leeza Mangaldas, signing off. I believe love matters.